If you don't mind, if you maybe just start by introducing yourself, kind of where you're at right now, and kind of what you've done.
Yeah, so I'm Brandon Guyer. Right now I'm a free agent, but been in the big leagues past, I guess I made my debut in 2011. So since 2011, I made my debut, been in the big leagues kind of up and down for the first 3 years. And then after that was up with the Rays and then the Indians. And then, that was pretty much, then I went to the minor leagues with the White Sox, and I was with the Giants in spring training this year. After this little break, got let go about a couple of weeks ago. So I'm a free agent right now, but total I have 6.5 years about service time in the big leagues, and went to the University of Virginia. From Northern Virginia. So I grew up there, went to high school there at Herndon High School. And now I live in Maryland with my wife and 3 kids, and I'm just trying to figure out what's going to happen this year. It's a weird situation. So just trying to stay healthy, eating good, training good, and just you see what happens. So that's kind of everything in a nutshell right there.
Awesome, man. Thank you. So I'm going to kind of kick this off with maybe a layup question. Maybe not, depends. What is your favorite thing to eat as an athlete? Like what tastes really good to you that's also really good for you? Could be anything.
There's so much. I just really enjoy food, and good high quality food that you can make taste really good. Right now, my favorite thing is just like I'm craving it is egg salad. I don't know why. I always if there's not much in the house and we haven't been able to go to the grocery store, so I stock up on eggs, and we'll make like 8 hard-boiled eggs. Use about 4 of them. Have the egg salad with some avocado, mayo, and then some like almond flour wraps. Yeah, man, that's just my go-to right now. But I like everything: steaks, chicken, all that stuff. But if I had to say one thing right now, that would probably be it.
Awesome. Kind of my next question, and something I think you can really speak about, is what are some of the challenges like growing up, like either at Virginia, kind of working your way through the minor leagues. How were you able to kind of, you said you really like to eat, but there's a lot of challenges there. Obviously in the minor leagues too, potentially like financial, time constraints, like, you're kind of stuck with maybe what the clubby has for you that day. How did you kind of manage that? What were kind of some tips and tricks for you, and what can maybe some of these guys, take away from, whether they're both parents work and they come home from school and they're by themselves, whether they're, a high school kid trying to grab snacks in between class, college kid who's trying to figure it out, or, even the minor leaguers that, obviously they've got their own tactics that they're working through now, but with your experience, you might have some other tips and tricks.
Yeah, well, I'll start off with that's a great question because it's a huge topic. I'll start off with when I was in high school. That it kind of all started for me like junior, senior year of high school. My dad, after he realized kind of the trash that's served, I don't know if it's the same thing in cafeterias in high school. It might have changed, but back then it was just garbage. So a lot of times he would wake up and cook me some like grilled chicken and or like rice and stuff like that to bring to school. So I started that in high school. And then going into college, that kind of got me on the path of eating healthy. And then going into college, at the cafeterias there at University of Virginia, they were better food. You had your options. If you wanted to eat garbage, you could, but if you wanted to eat pretty healthy, you could. So I tried to do the best I could with that, but also, go to the store and just make sure I was always bulked up with different snacks, whether it's protein bars. I have a bunch of snacks here, but like something like this almond butter, something like quick fuel. So it's funny, when I was in the minors and then in the big leagues, I was always known as the guy that everyone looked at me because I always had a carry-on bag. So we were on the long bus trips in the minors or, plane trips in the big leagues. I always had a big carry-on bag, and everyone just assumed like that was just my luggage and but like clothes in it. So then I would be on the plane or the bus. I would open that bad boy up, and it's just snacks, like literally just food in there. And everyone's like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" And so at first people were giving me a hard time, and they were like, "Dang man, I'm hungry. You got anything good I can eat?" So I always made sure I was prepared. So I had I have options here. I have So like beef jerky. My kids will pack it, but it's actually huge. For quick fuel, it's got apples, sweet potato, carrots, cinnamon, rice you can microwave. I mean, literally everything on my desk here. I don't want to take time and show it all. Oatmeal I always make in the morning. This is what I had on my carry-on bag in the big leagues and in the minor leagues. And I really think that was a big reason. You know, I feel like I had talent, but there were more guys talented than me, but I was always prepared and always made sure I was fueled right. And eating healthy and training hard kept me in the best shape possible so that I could make the most of my talent. And I think eating and being prepared like this and having all the snacks on hand was a big reason why I was able to do what I've done in my career. So I think that answers your question. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And players too, if you guys have anything that pops up, you know, specific situations, definitely feel free to unmute yourself and or type something in the chat and we'll get going. The other thing, you know, I think from a hydration perspective, obviously, like you're obviously drinking water and things like this. How many gallons or how many ounces of water do you try to do in a day? Is it something that's scientific to you, or is it something where you just know you want to stay hydrated and you just slam water?
I just try to stay hydrated. I've never been the guy to like make sure I get a certain amount in. I guess I don't really wait till I'm thirsty. I just always have a water with me. Like right now, I'm drinking this water, Defiance Fuel. It's really like pH balanced, good water. But I always have something with me. I just got done a hard workout earlier, so I always get in some sort of electrolyte after the workout. And even if I'm not working out, I'll get there's this other one called Liquid IV, especially hot days if you got double headers or something going on. That's good. Just pour it in from the packet and drink it, get your electrolytes. But as far as the total amount, I don't know. But I just really another thing I have here, Himalayan salt. So people always gave me so much, I don't want to say, but a lot of crap because I would always carry this Himalayan salt thing everywhere I go. You can just pour it right into the water. I have it. I just pour it on all my food. There's really good electrolytes here, especially, like I said, hot days or, you know, if you feel like you're getting dehydrated, this is huge. I actually I put this in like room temperature water right when I wake up. I try to have like 8 to 16 ounces of water with I don't know how much of this, teaspoon or so. I just pour it in there right when I wake up. But just little things like that is what I feel like helps me stay hydrated throughout the day.
Awesome. What about in-game doubleheaders? Like if you've got doubleheaders or in-game, obviously, you know, when you're in the big leagues, it's a 9-inning game. You know, some of these high school kids or college players have to play, you know, 2 7s or, you know, they're playing. Some of these younger kids are playing 3-4 games in a day in a tournament. What's kind of some stuff? I know, obviously, you know, I remember our coaches and things just ordering McDonald's or Jimmy John's or trying to get something in us. What's something that you do, you know, for you?
So for me, I'm trying to think. 2 of the things I already showed you what I would do. I would have most of the times before a game, but also if I'll do it before and then before the second game, I'll have like a jerky. I'll have a good fat, so the protein. I'll have a good fat source with the like a butter or something, like some sort of bar. My go-to, I love like just squirting like a tablespoon or so of this right before I go out to the game, get that quick sugar in me, some good energy fuel. These are like little oatmeal bites. So get some carbs. One thing is I know there's like new diets out about low carb, high fat. But I feel like if we're playing a lot, especially double headers and stuff like that, I haven't tried ketos and stuff like that, but I don't know how it works. But for me, I know if I don't get a lot of carbs in, especially when I'm using a lot of energy, that I'm just going to lose weight or I'm just going to feel fatigued and sluggish. So most of the time in those situations, like a doubleheader or something like that, when I know, or like during a game, if we're going extra innings, I'll go in my locker, and a big part of every locker I'm in is always, you know, a cubby of snacks. So I'll go in there, and if you don't have that, if for whatever reason, most clubhouses will have peanut butter and honey. Just grab a tablespoon of peanut butter, get that, put some honey on it. And then like the oatmeal bar, great for carbohydrates. So I really just try to get a protein, fat, carbohydrate in everything I'm doing. For me, that's worked for, you know, get me through those situations.
Awesome. Um, in terms of like coaches, I think there's a lot of college coaches on here. I think there's some pro coaches. What are some things that we can do to kind of help support the nutrition side of things, whether it's scheduling, whether it's making sure that we're educating. How can we provide players more across all levels with better information other than just saying like, hey, you need to eat right, because that's such, okay, what does that mean? You need to have enough
Mhm.
calories. What does that mean? Like, how do you track your calories? Like, what do players need to know? When did you kind of really come into your own and take ownership of that? And how can we make that happen sooner for younger players?
Yeah, for me, like I said, I took it serious when I realized, well, I wanted to play college ball, obviously pro ball early on in high school, but when I got really serious, like junior year, I wish I started earlier, but junior year is when I started, and I'm like, and after doing it for a little, I was like, man, this really does make a big difference. And so my dad started that with me, and he started it and helped me because he ate pretty healthy. He showed me some articles, stuff like that. So I feel like when you ask about what coaches should do, I feel like if they can, in a way, practice what they preach, if they, talk about, even though at the same time, they're not going out there and playing and all that stuff. So they don't need to necessarily eat that way. Gabe Kapler, who I was coaching this year at the Giants, he's the healthiest coach I've ever seen. It's crazy. He's a freak. But obviously not all coaches eat like that. So I think if your coaches try to find good articles online, get good education for the players, show examples. I don't know, someone like me. There's a lot of guys in the big leagues now. Just from when I started in 2014, like full time in the big leagues, and so when I ended, it's crazy that the chefs that every team had, how they cooked healthy, and even in the minor leagues, it got so much healthier. So it's definitely changed, and it's easier. The good food is more available now. But as far as college, high school, I just think you got to educate them and show them good examples, because a lot of times you can talk and then, that's not going to be enough. They need to see examples of exactly why it works. So that's the best I got for that.
Great. From a calorie perspective, can you talk a little bit about, is that something that you try to pay attention to? I know one of the big things for youth players or just parents and coaches in general is, we do say, or I get this, a lot, is my kid eats a ton, but he's not, gaining weight necessarily. There's no caloric, gain on that or max to try to actually produce that. So how do you kind of manage your weight? And obviously, you're weighing in every so often with your strength coaches and doing things like that. They're kind of help guide
Mm-hmm.
you. But how is something from a food perspective do you help manage that?
For me, I've never really looked at calories. I just feel like if I'm eating good, clean food, I don't really need to worry about the calories. If I'm in a situation where I'm like overweight and I'm trying to lose that weight, then yeah, I would look at calories and stuff. But still, if you're eating super good, nutrient dense food, I don't think you really need to worry about the calories. So when it comes to calories, I don't really do that. I never have. Trying to think. I guess the one year I really focused on not so much calories, but just making sure I ate a ton was after I think 2008, my second year in pro ball with the Cubs. I had like 2 home runs, and in my head, I'm like, I was weighing 200 at the time. I was like, I need to get bigger, I need to get stronger, and I need to just weigh more. So I went from that off season like 205, 210, and I went into spring training at 230. And that off season, I just lifted weights, crushed food, and so in that aspect, I made sure that I was just eating constantly every couple hours. But I didn't necessarily count the calories. I just made sure I was always eating. But right now, when I'm like 200 right now, I'm really just eating throughout the day whenever I'm hungry. But everything I eat for the most part is clean and healthy. Every now and then, having kids and stuff, they want to get a pizza or ice cream dessert. I go off a little bit, but I think the more you do it, the easier it's going to be for you to stick to that. People like, I'm not going to name names, but people who thought it would be hard, after they do it for a couple of weeks or something, it's crazy how it can just turn into a new habit, a good habit. And that's just all you want to do, because you notice the difference. And it's going to take some extra time and everything, but I think at the end of the day, your results, the way you feel, it'll all be worth it. So.
Great. 2 questions from some of the people on. Do you do anything different the days before games? I know obviously when you're in season, or maybe a better question would be, because you're playing every day. Do you do anything different on either on your off days, or do you do anything different if you know you have a big workout, the next day in your off season?
Not the day before, not really. Like today, I had a big, hard, a lot of energy expended workout. So before it, especially right before it, I did my thing with the honey, take just like a shot of honey. So I got some carbs in me before, and then afterwards I try to get some good quick carbs in too. So whether it's like this thing of rice you can get in, different pasta, or an apple, something like that, some quick carb just to restore your glycogen. I'll get that in with some protein and stuff. But as far as like a day before, I never really, I know people, I think would do marathons and stuff like that, they'll carb load and all that, but I've never tried it. It could work good. I really don't know, but yeah, I don't do anything crazy as far as the day before.
And the other question was, and we kind of touched, I think, a little bit on the beginning. You kind of showed us some of your kind of tips and talking about just spoonfuls of peanut butter and adding some honey and some things like that. How often do you have like a fully cooked meal when you're on the road? And with that schedule, how do you make time for it?
Okay, so I'll just use spring training this year as an example. My family usually comes out with me, but they stayed home this year. So I was just in a hotel room. So luckily the room had a fridge in it. So I always just try to find a good website where you can, nowadays you can order pre-cooked packaged food that you just put in the freezer or in the fridge. So I found a company, Trifecta, and basically they send me, I think it was 7 meals a week. They send like 20 hard-boiled eggs. It was delivered every Friday. So as far as a meal, like spring training, I would have this oatmeal in the morning, put some peanut butter, something in it, and then I have like 3 hard-boiled eggs on the way to the field. At the field before the game, the Giants this year, they were amazing nutrition-wise. So they always had good food at the field. So I get another meal in me before the game or right after practice. And then when I went home at night, I would just put one of those pre-cooked meals, throw it in the microwave. And that was my 3rd meal. So in between that, all these snacks I've shown you, kind of what I get in. So I would say a good 3 meals I try on the road. If I'm in a hotel room during a season, it's a little harder because you can't get those meals necessarily shipped to every road city. So with that, I'll make sure I have this oatmeal. Like I said, you just need to put hot water in it. Have that in the morning. And then for lunch, I'll try to just find like a good, I'm trying to think of a good place you could go. I know there's like Chick-fil-A and stuff, but just a good restaurant if it's close to your hotel. Try to get the healthiest thing on the menu. But if there's nothing around, like I said, I always had that luggage bag of food with me. So I was always prepared. If it was just like a thing of jerky I had to get in and I would eat it twice a day, so be it. It's better than putting other junk in your body. So that's kind of what I would do.
And I would say that's something that I saw, last year too. A lot of our guys were, ordering in their or getting those like meals sent to them and kind of trying to keep track of it and pack it and do different things. And another thing too is, they would basically add to whatever the clubby had. So they would take home, if it was like chicken and rice, they would take that home and then be able to like kind of use what was already made. And then they would have other stuff with it, so that way they're trying to be cost effective, but they're trying to make sure they get the other stuff and that it kind of comes together too.
That's a great idea.
On that side of things. Kind of going away from, I guess, the, necessarily, tips and tricks from there. So kind of just to recap, having kind of a bag full of just like snacks, having some stuff that, you just have easily accessible, making sure that you have kind of some of the staples, peanut butter, honey. What about, you said you like everything. Have you ran into like really picky eaters that kind of really struggle to maybe do that? Like, if somebody is, there's some challenges there. That is it something where you just kind of got to eat it anyways and make sure you get it in, or do you have different options and things like that? It doesn't sound like you're a picky eater,
Hmm.
but I don't know if you
Yeah,
know anybody who are, meet all kinds of people.
for sure. For sure. I think in that situation, the good thing is nowadays, if you're talking 20 years ago, there's not as much healthy snacks and easy to go to food as there is now. So now, if you're picky or something, you have so many options. I mean, unless you really just don't like anything, you just want pizza and whatever stuff like that. I mean, it's hard to help that kind of person, but I haven't ran into anyone like that. My big thing, I would have like a lot of like kale chips. So obviously I knew a lot of people, even though they're flavor good and everything, people aren't necessarily going to like the kale chips. But then I would have like a lot of freeze dried fruit, something that's great right before a game, especially, a lot of clubhouses have bananas and stuff like that. But if they don't have much fruit at the field, that's good to get good, quick carb source and sugar in. So as far as picky people, like I said, because there's so many good snacks out there on the market, I don't think if you're really looking to eat clean and get good fuel in you before a game or just at any time, you really have no excuse. There's just so many options out there and so many ways to get it. So, I think a lot of time people just don't want to put the time in. And yeah, for me to go to the store and load up on all that stuff before a long road trip, put it all in the bag, everything, it takes time. But if you want to see results in anything, like if you want to get better at hitting, you got to put time in the cage, anything in life. So that's why I put time into my nutrition, because I knew it would help me every other part of baseball and life in general. So yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. That kind of goes along with a lot of the stuff we've been talking about up to this point too, is making sure you take the time, prioritizing things like that, making sure you don't
Yeah.
miss out. If there was one meal that you just absolutely are not going to miss, you're going to make sure you've got something for, which meal is that?
Ooh. I don't know if I could pick just one. I know like people are doing intermittent fasting and not necessarily eating breakfast, because I don't necessarily think breakfast is what it was like growing up. Everyone's like, oh, most important meal of the day. I don't think that's the case. I'm just so hungry in the morning, so I eat. I'm like, why would I not eat if I'm hungry? So I eat that. I don't know if one's the most important. For me in the off season, and really big is right after a workout. I want to get a good meal in it. If I can and have the time, I want to cook a meal and not just get a shake. But obviously, if I'm in a hurry, a shake is the best thing. So if I had to pick one, I'd say that. But they're all pretty equal to me and all pretty, obviously very important. So it's hard to pick one.
No, that's definitely a fair answer. In terms of your guilty pleasure, what's your guilty pleasure that you still feel like you get some value out of? Whether it's a bowl of ice cream right before bed, you call it, you're getting some casein protein in there. Whether it's something like that.
I actually did that last night.
Yeah. So what's your guilty pleasure that you kind of let yourself still feel good about?
Right now, what I go to, and it's not really guilty pleasure because it's actually healthy, but it tastes just like my favorite candy of all time, which is Swedish Fish. There's a company out there called Smart Sweets, and basically they're like gummy bears and stuff. Like my kids crush them. It's basically they're not any sugar at all. It's like a lot of fiber and stuff in them, but they taste like the real thing. So I get that. But like last night, I had a big bowl of I think it was coconut milk ice cream. So in a way, it's like healthier ice cream, but it's still ice cream, has the sugar and all that stuff in it. So that, and throw like those Smart Sweets on it. What else did I have with it? So this company, Simple Mills, they make you can make your own brownies and cookies at home. So we do that a lot in this house. We use that company. I think their main ingredient's almond flour. So in a way, it's guilty pleasure because it's not as healthy, but as you could tell, anyone who knows me would attest to this. I don't really eat a lot of that kind of stuff. It's not that I'm depriving myself. I don't really care for it. I think because of all the years that I've ate this way, that's just, I know how it's going to make me feel. And I know how that's going to make me feel after if I eat that stuff. So I don't know. If I want it, I definitely eat it. But if I'm not in the mood, I just have something else. And in no way am I depriving myself because I like the way other food tastes.
And then a question from one of the college coaches here was, how do you scout? So let's say you're going to go to that city, and the minor leagues is very different than the big leagues and where you're staying and the types of hotels you're in. But how often did you scout before you went there, places to go? You know, these college coaches, or even, you know, when you were playing at Virginia, was that something you had to do, switching cities every weekend? And, you know, the school's kind of responsible for feeding those guys. How did you scout what was in the area? And obviously it might be different now with all the apps and Yelp and things like that, but it's your approach.
Yeah, those are huge for me. Yelp, was it opentable.com? So those I use now. Back in college and stuff, like I said, back in 2004, 2007, wasn't a lot of super healthy varieties out there. So I definitely wasn't eating as clean then as I do now. So back then, you know, if it was Chick-fil-A or, you know, I thought I was eating really healthy if I went to Subway and got like tuna on it and stuff like that. But, you know, if I was in college now, I mean, there's literally so many more options and so many more companies out there making good, healthy food. But on the road, Yelp is huge for me. And I have a huge list from like every road city I went to in the big leagues and in the minor leagues. And just if I had already gone there time, I was like, okay, I know what I'm going to do before I go to the field today. I know where I'm going to go. And if I know it's a little far away, I'll make sure I get time to have an Uber or something like that to take me and pick it up and then just go right from there to the field or something. So, yeah, I mean, in the big leagues, I would always save those on a list. And me and a couple other guys who always try to eat healthy, we would go to that place right before the field, and you know it would give us another reason to look forward to going to a city because we would find kind of hot spots in every city and go to those every time. So that's kind of what we did.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I want to be respectful of your time. I really appreciate you coming on. I know you got 3 kids running around.
I can't believe they haven't ran in here yet.
Yeah, we've had some appearances. It's been all right. If anybody has any last minute questions, Ty, Owen, I don't know if Zach's on here. Some of you guys now would be a good time. I would say we probably have time for. Well, actually, I guess it's 2:30. We took up more than I said. So maybe.
I mean, if anyone has questions, it's fine.
Maybe not necessarily even about cooking. You got kind of a guy who spent a lot of time in the big leagues. You know, if that's a goal of yours. You know, he's had a chance to play in some pretty cool games. You can kind of see maybe the patch in the background there. Maybe ask him about 2016. We are from Chicago. Don't rub it in.
Yeah, I'm still not over that yet, man.
Yeah, it was. That was a wild series.
Mm-hmm.
Ty wants to know where you can find Smart Sweets.
Yeah, so on Amazon we usually get them, but an app that we use a lot is called Thrive Market. It's basically like an online Whole Foods. So we'll get all our dry food from there. Something like this company, Lesser Evil, like just toss something quick and easy you can take with you. On Thrive Market, it's an app and a website. Basically, they cut out the middleman, and all of their food is probably 10 to 30% off. So it's cheaper, but they have all this super healthy food on there. So Thrive Market, I 100% recommend. We get so much stuff from there. But Smart Sweets is also on Amazon.
Awesome, great question, Ty. Anybody else have any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself. Don't have to put it in the chat. We can try to be a little more efficient here. Going once. Going twice.
Question. This is Sammy from Iowa State. When we start season, we travel a ton. So we're really only in town for like Monday through Wednesday. Do you have any tips for like things to keep on hand during that time when like really don't have time to go to the or it's worth it to go to the 3 days we're here?
I would just, just stock up. If you know you're not going to be able to go out, stock up, make a huge order on Thrive Market. I I can't say enough about that place. We literally get so much food from there, and you save so much money. So just stock up, and a lot of this food, good about it, it lasts so long. I would just number one, stock up. Especially if you know you're not going to be able to go to the store for a while. So it's a good question.
That seems to be the theme. That might be something to make sure you put in your priorities list, and kind of your goals and stuff like that, is making sure you're stocking up.
Yeah.
Just being prepared.
Going through all that I had. Oh, this ghee butter, easy to take on the road, doesn't need to be refrigerated. Good fats right here. Just literally throw, it's like just butter, put it on anything. Fat butter. I've literally, my whole desk is snacks I brought in. As you can tell, I'm obsessed with this stuff. So, any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's Timmy. As you were growing up, was there any like outfielders that you modeled your game after?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's funny. We were just looking at our I was cleaning out some stuff, and I had like my little league cards and stuff like that. And we went through three different years of cards, and it's like I would look on the back and knew it would be like, who's your favorite player at that time? And so I would try to guess at that age what my favorite player was. And so back then, two of the cards, one card was Deion Sanders, the other one was Ken Griffey Jr. And the other one was Cal Ripken. And actually, growing up, I played a lot of shortstop and third base. So Cal Ripken, being from the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, him in Baltimore, I saw him play a lot. So Cal Ripken was huge. But I think the athleticism of Deion Sanders and Ken Griffey is what made me like them so much. And I totally forgot I even put Deion Sanders on the back of my card when I was like 7 years old. But I just think their athleticism, having speed, having power at the same time, that's something that I really prided myself on, was not just being, just being multidimensional and trying to have all five tools. And those guys did that. So that's kind of the guys I tried to mold myself after. And then when I was at Virginia, one guy I really enjoyed to watch was Aaron Rowan. And I remember my college coaches and scouts would always compare me to him. And last year, he actually coached when I was in minor league camp or big league camp with the Chicago White Sox. So to be able to be around him and like, man, you're the guy I always saw on TV, ran into walls, could do it all. That was the guy I wanted to be like. So then to have him like coaching me, giving me advice, it was pretty cool. So those are the guys that stand out for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question.
That's always a fun question. Anybody got anything else? All right, Brandon, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you kind of donating to our cause and engaging with some of our guys and girls. It's awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, best of luck to you guys. Take care.
See you. All right, up next, we were going to have Jeremy Frodden from UCF do something, and I totally dropped the ball on reminding him on that. I promised I would help him out with that, and I forgot till the last minute. But we should still be good for Tyger Pederson, who's a minor league hitting coach with the Cardinals. What's going on, Tyger?
What's going on, guys? How's everybody doing?
Awesome.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. I think everyone's muted, though, so it sounded like we got some head nods and some stuff, too. I appreciate you jumping on, man. I know you had you were kind of last minute and making kind of squeezing us in, so I really appreciate you taking the time.
No, definitely. Happy to be here, guys. Definitely a pleasure.
Awesome. So, kind of maybe introduce yourself, kind of talk about maybe your experience, with the Cardinals up to this point or, previous to that. Just so our listeners and guys on can kind of get a little background.
Yeah, definitely, guys. So I come from a big baseball family. Dad played professionally 13 years. Brother plays currently with the Dodgers. He's a left fielder. Played with the Dodgers a few years in the minor leagues. Started getting into coaching right after that. I coached with Major League Baseball to start off out in Taiwan. Did a couple stints at college. I coached at a Division II at Hawaii Pacific, and then at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. at a D1. After that, I managed 2 summers, one in the California Collegiate League and then one in the Northwoods League before St. Louis offered me a hitting coach job last year. I was a hitting coach in high A, and then this year I'm slotted to be our double A hitting coach. Hopefully everything ends soon and we can get back to baseball. But yeah, that's a little bit of my background and kind of what I've done. But yeah.
Awesome. So I know you have, or maybe you mentioned you might have a great hitting drill for some of these guys to do at home. Maybe we'll start with that, and then I've got maybe we'll kind of go into a Q&A. Try to get you out of here, be respectful of your time as well. If you got to run, feel free to jump off. But if you want to kind of maybe talk about the hitting drill you had in mind that guys can maybe do during this time.
Yeah, definitely. So I know, we've been trying to get creative with our org and keeping our guys busy. And, it's tough during this time. We all want to practice social distancing for sure and be safe and do the right thing. So I'm going to flip my camera around just so you guys can see. But I kind of set up our home hitting cage, I guess. So we've got, the mattress, old mattress. We got our tee. We've got wiffle balls so that we don't make any holes or anything. Got some, bats, batting gloves, whatever. This is a little homemade bat for some dry drills that we've been using. Just threw some lizard skin on a piece of wood. Just kind of, get some feels and not tax your body too much. So that's been kind of cool to mess around with a little bit. Do mirror work with that. But anyways, yeah, for the hitting drill today, we've got a step back drill. I'm going to turn this around so that you guys can see a little bit better. Prop this up. Hopefully the lighting's okay. We'll see. Let's see how this works. All right. So you guys can see okay, Ryan?
Yep. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So this is a step back drill. Basically, this drill is really good for guys who can't load their back hip, guys who just kind of fall forward. I know we've all probably been that guy at some point or coached that person, but that guy that continuously gets out onto his front side, can't really maintain their back hip, like I said, just kind of, falls out of it. So anyways, this is a really good drill for those kind of guys. It's just a simple step back. Learned this one going through the Dodgers org. Me and Bellinger played together in rookie ball, and he kind of showed it to me. My brother Jock did it a lot. He even used it in the game sometimes. So kind of up to everybody's discretion how you want to use it, whether it's just in the training environment or whether it's in the game as well. You even see Arenado do it sometimes in the game. So anyways, it's just a simple step back. So it kind of looks like this. You set up to the tee normal, and you just do a little bit of step back rock, and then you get into your forward move. I'm going to adjust this video just a tad so that you can see it a little bit better, get the whole thing. But so here we go. I'll just take a swing. Hopefully don't crush anything in my cage. Try to keep it safe, but simple step back, go, boom. Nice little swing. Obviously you got to go chase the ball and do the thing. I'll take one more and then get into it a little bit more. But as you can see, I'll go kind of slower this time, but just in your regular setup, step back, go forward, boom, take your swing, really focusing on changing, that balance, being able to go from your backside to your front side, transfer weight efficiently, focusing on keeping your load in your backside as you go forward. So for a lot of guys, it just helps create that rhythm and just helps them, kind of get that feel. So back into our backside, forward, get off a nice good swing, get some working at home, not able to practice social distancing. Obviously that's the most important thing, but also you can still get some work in, be creative. We just got a tee and, an old mattress. So definitely some cool things that you can do to kind of keep yourself busy, continue to work out and do it the safe way. And that's what's most important right now is just kind of, doing the right thing and trying to stay as prepared as we can for the season. And we know, who knows when that's coming, but gotta stay ready.
Absolutely. That was awesome. Yeah, I love the step back drill. Do you have any adaptations that you either change, either how far they stride, maybe their cue, whether they're maybe trying to stomp on the ground, land soft, from that aspect, depending on who you're working with? And what are some things that would make you cue a guy differently in that drill?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think depending on the guy, the cue is going to be a little bit different, right? For some guys, maybe you're really focusing on holding that back hip. So maybe it's like, all right, we're just going to really focus on our back hip as we move forward. Maybe some guys, it's more of like, look, we got to do a little bit better job of getting off our backside. You kind of get stuck on it. So it's just going to be like, rhythm through it. Just really focusing on the transferring from the backside to the front side. So depending on the guy is definitely going to determine on how you cue them as a coach. So I guess kind of just figuring out like what you want to get out of the drill. And obviously, it's just one drill, right? So depending on who you are and how you move and, all those different things, there's, a wide variety of different drills that you can do. And given the constraints of being at home, a lot of us are limited to T drills. With the wiffle balls, you could get a little bit creative and, go outside. And if you have somebody at home that can flip to you or throw to you, you can definitely do that. We've done some stuff with this bat, and we just have like these little rocks. I'm out in Arizona. We have little rocks that we throw to each other and hit. So you can definitely get creative, but given everybody's kind of at home and in different environments, I figured a T drill would be a good use of time for the audience. So yeah, good question.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm just trying to guide the conversation. I don't have a list of questions or anything like that. So if you guys have questions, just unmute yourself and just speak up. Your questions are going to be better, and I want you guys to engage. So if you guys have questions, type them in the chat or unmute yourself and just be like, hey, excuse me, and we'll go from there. With that being said, you mentioned about guys moving differently. You obviously played, your brother's in a big time spot. Where, when you talk about like feels changing and drills changing and cues changing, potentially daily for some guys, how do you as a coach manage some of that? I see you're wearing a blast hat. Technology's made kind of a big push into the game. How do you help guys, trust a drill for the right amount of time versus, keep trying a drill that doesn't necessarily, translate quick enough? How do you kind of manage that? And maybe I didn't explain my question well enough, but I'm curious to hear your answer.
Yeah, no, it's, we live in a time where everybody wants, feedback immediately and good results, right? And unfortunately, baseball is really challenging, hitting's really tough, and so it's hard to get those immediate results. But, I think getting guys to focus on the process is really important. And how you do that is definitely, it's a process in coaching, honestly. Getting to know your players, building that trust, building that relationship is really, really important. I think coming in last year as a first-year hitting coach, guys are trying to feel you out, where you've been, what you've done, what's this guy got? And it's really just about like the timing of everything, like building that relationship and building that trust so that you can get to the point where it's like, look, this is what we're going to do. This is a process. We're going to work through this thing together, and not just throwing a bunch of stuff at them right away. So, that's getting more into the hitting coach side of things. But as far as the technology, you mentioned the blast hat, and there's all kinds of great pieces of technology out there, but I think the technology is great when you can use it to evaluate, right? And it helps you create some buy-in. It gives obviously some metrics that, that guys are looking for. So it can help them kind of like stick to that process. So I think any piece of tech is beneficial if it creates buy-in with your players and helps, that process of like the coach-player communication. A lot of players are now really, really informed with the tech. So as coaches, we got to, obviously try to stay ahead of them and, be as well versed as we can. There's so many different pieces of technology out there nowadays. It's always, trying to stay ahead of it because every organization is different. Every player is different. And, as a coach, you just kind of want to, be well versed in all different, fields of tech and be able to best help each player, because at the end of the day, it's about serving the kid that you're working with. And, you know, we don't know what kind of background they come from, whether it's high school, college, you know, you get them in, you know, in a trade or whatever. And so I guess being well versed in all the tech definitely can help create that buy-in, and definitely can help create a better process and them sticking to their process. So yeah, I know I went in a lot of different directions answering that question, but it was wrapped deep. There's a lot of things in there, so hopefully I answered it all right.
That was a paint splatter question. Just kind of started talking, and it kind of went a lot of different areas. So that was a really good answer. Thanks for being methodical with that. If you know, this is kind of a loaded question. You know, there's a lot of stuff. You know, I know you're on Twitter, and you've probably seen some of those things. If you had to pick, you know, there's 9 things, and you can only pick 3 of them to continue to coach, or you know, kind of those games that people are playing. You know, this question is kind of similar to that. If you had to pick one aspect of hitting, what would be the one thing that you would focus on with players across all levels? If you could only focus on one concept.
One concept in hitting?
Yeah.
So you're not talking about a tool or tech?
Right, exactly. Yeah, just one concept. You can only talk about, you know,
okay.
And Jordan, if you want to unmute yourself and maybe ask that question more clearly, if you want to.
Yeah, so more of like, do you value the swing, the decision-making piece, vision, and stuff like that, not so much technology or one specific thing?
Yep. No, that's awesome, man. And, you know, hitting obviously combines all those things, right? So they're all important. But if you have to pick one, I think swing decision is definitely right there for me. The reason being, I think that if you do not make good swing decisions, you are going to put yourself in a very, very tough position to be successful. At that point, it doesn't matter how good your mechanics are. If you're chasing balls in the dirt all the time and getting, you know, in defensive hitting counts, whereas we all know it's, you know, super valuable if you're able to take that 0-0, you know, breaking ball that's off the plate, and now you're hitting in a 1-0 count. Like, that changes your whole AB. So the ability to make good swing decisions and, you know, evaluate those and just have a better understanding of the strike zone, understand like where you do damage and how the pitcher's trying to pitch you, and, you know, where's he good and what kind of game plan matches up to, you know, it's a challenge of what the pitcher does, what you're going to see, and then what you do well, and like, how are you going to beat him? So that's where it kind of gets into the game planning and strategy of the game. But the swing decisions for me is huge. It's, you know, something that you can definitely focus on in your training environment. It's something that you can focus on in your game environment and, you know, reflecting post-game reports and all that kind of stuff. So for me, that's the number one thing. And, you know, I'm aware you can definitely argue, you know, vision and you can go with, you know, some people would probably say swing mechanics, but yeah, swing decisions for me is there.
No, that's awesome, man. Thanks. One question from a player was, what is your favorite tech to use?
And yeah, if I had to pick my favorite, it's definitely going to be the video. I like the video for a lot of different reasons. I think it's really good to get a starting assessment, you know, just to see where your guy's at. This is what we got, you know, timestamp it. And then be able to work through that. All right. Okay. We're doing drills. Here's the right drill. Here's the hole. Okay. Are we getting it accomplished what we want to do? This is what it looks like. Yes. Okay. Let's move. We go, we make the environment a little bit tougher and see if we can still hold on to our move. If we can keep moving forward, but you can easily progress and regress, like using the video and seeing like where the changes are happening. And if you're able to stay on that line, where, you know, in a week or 2 weeks, you're able to see, okay, this is what we're doing. We're going down the right track. I think from a hitting coach standpoint, I like it because it allows you to prove your work. You know, you promote your game, or, you know, somebody higher up in PD and be like, hey, Johnny, you know, he looked terrible today. Like, what are you guys doing? You know? And, you know, they just get them in a small snapshot and just like a quick glimpse of how they see your player. But they don't have, you know, they don't know the context of where you started, what you're working through, you know, where you're going, and the video can help capture that. Also think the video is super helpful for the players, because they can see, I like to show them like their highlights. So look, man, this is when you're going best. This is what we want to see. This is what we want you to visualize. And it gets a little bit more into the mental side, but like, hey, this is where we want to be. We want to be in a mental state where we're confident, like we're feeling like a bad dude when I walk to the plate, like I'm ready to rock and roll. You know, so just visualizing yourself, watching video of you smoking doubles in the gap, like, you know, hitting your best ball, whatever that ball is, and just watching yourself be good over and over and over, I think is super beneficial. And, you know, lots of things and cues and all those things were when you are going good, right? So with video, you can track all those things. And, you know, it's a piece of tech just like anything else where, you know, you can definitely overdo it. You know, if guys are so much caught up on the video, like after each swing, they want to see it and stop and talk in the game, you know, they want to watch all the time. And, you know, for some players that's really good. And for some players it can be too much. So that's where, you know, the art of coaching comes in. With any piece of technology and implementation, it's about how you use it, you know, how much you give the player. And as a coach, you know, we can absorb more information, but how we filter it back to the player, super important and super valuable. So, you know, just because I'm sitting here saying, hey, I value video and I think it's the most important thing. Well, hey, for a specific player used in the wrong setting, that video can be detrimental to that player's career. And you know, you see guys up there thinking about mechanics and thinking about video in the box. Well, it's not helping that kind of guy. So anyways, like, you know, just being able to have that wisdom and that coach feel to know like when's the right timing, how to use the video, in what ways, I think is super important. And that goes for any kind of technology.
Awesome. Another question from a player is, if you are one of those players that loses the hinge in their back hip, what are some ways to work on holding it longer? Is it more a lack of mobility?
Yeah, it definitely can be, right? You know, if anybody's familiar with On Base U, you know, they do a good job of talking about it. There's a lot, you know, you can work with your strength and conditioning staff to kind of put you through any kind of, you know, like an FMS test to feel, you know, where you're lacking and where any red flags may be. But yeah, a lot of times I think it could be an issue. It could be more a feel thing. For some guys, it's just a simple fix, like maybe something they haven't really thought about, or, you know, been aware of before. So it could be just like, you know, a lack of education type thing. Some guys need to see it on video, what that looks like. Maybe, you know, a specific drill like the step back, all kinds of different things or stuff you can do in the weight room for it. So I think just being creative and trying to figure out where the breakdown's happening, and then, you know, creating a plan with whoever you have involved in your hitting to be able to help that. Luckily at the pro level, we have a lot of guys who work together in that, whether it's, you know, a strength and conditioning staff, hitting coach, athletic trainer, to kind of get to the bottom of like, where's the limitation coming from? You know, and then how do we go about helping fix that? So good question.
What do you think about, you know, we talk about like absolutes versus concepts and things a lot, at least, you know, I talk about that. I talk about, you know, there's these concepts and there's not really as many absolutes as I think people try to make them out to be. You know, a lot of people are focusing on the ground, you know, right now, especially with kind of some of the new information that's come out with. And we found is that the hinge is more important to production than necessarily doing something specific with your, you know, pressure in your rear leg. So, you know, for us, a lot of times people are cueing like stay in your heel, activate the hamstring and the glute, don't get quad loaded, don't get on your toe. But a lot of times if you're in your toe, it allows that specific player to hinge better. And the hinge being in your toe, even if it causes them to fall forward sometimes or have that dive, it's a better trade-off than standing straight up and kind of losing space by trying to force it in their heel. How do you kind of navigate like some of those things, and how would you address like your hierarchy of like importance and on-field production? Because that's obviously what we're going for, right?
Yeah, definitely. It all comes down at the pro level to on-field production, right? people want results, and, you know, you got to hit, you know, if you want to move up and help the big league club. But yeah, you know, there's a lot of different concepts and out there. I would say, you know, as far as absolutes, like I'm definitely not the guy that's going to say, hey, you need to do this or you need to do that, because I believe one way or the other. It's more so about, you know, helping that individual player understand how he works and what he needs to do. So yeah, like you said, you know, there's lots of different feels. Maybe for one guy, it's, you know, getting into his heel and hamstring and being able to feel that load better and be able to maintain that. Other guys, it might be getting into the back hip, so that he can, you know, hip hinge better. And then it just creates a whole lot of different things, right? Like, it's going to affect your spacing, your direction, like all these different aspects of hitting that are very important. But, you know, hitting is a whole picture, right? It's not something where you can just say like, oh, like the hip hinge, like that's going to do it. Or, oh, the back heel, like that's the one. Or, oh, spine angle. Like, there's so many different things that go into it. And I think that understanding the hitter, and the movement and what we're trying to accomplish is really important, because one thing kind of leads to the next, right? And for a lot of people, like when I look at hitters, I like to go to the root, and I always try to figure out like, okay, like he's got all these different issues going on, like just because like his hand, you know, something with his hands, for example, are screwed up, like that's probably what I'm going to address first, right? Like, and I'm going to try to figure out like, okay, if I can figure out what the root of the issue is, then a lot of other things will get cleaned up in the process. And then maybe once the roots is better and he has a better foundation of hitting, then you can kind of tweak like some of these other minor things, which might be the hands or, you know, whatever else you want to address. But it's really easy to sit and, you know, kind of nitpick like, oh, he does this wrong, he does this wrong. But like, you know, go down the wrong one of those. Where you go to the root of the problem, then you can usually clean up a lot of things at once and then kind of like start getting a little bit more specific. So anyways, that's kind of how I go about that process.
No, that's great. That's great. How do you coach the player that's maybe overly obsessed with their mechanics, especially with how much, you know, information is being shared about their swing? You know, the kind of the way that we look at technology is that we want to identify their strengths, make sure that we maintain those strengths and that we don't address a weakness. You know, and then by doing so, we take that strength away, you know, that kind of makes them who they are. So by trying to cover all gates of the castle type thing. And how many players, you know, do you work with that really just like aren't perfect? Right? There's obviously things all the time and little things that you can address, but there's a time and a place to talk about mechanics and a time and a place to talk about mindset and timing and competing. Outside of that thing, but there's, you know, so many players that get really wrapped up or very OCD. They're very perfectionist like. You know, we've got baseball and softball players on here too. If that is a player that's like that, how do you kind of bring them back down and get them kind of maybe without thinking about cues and mechanics?
Yeah, no, that's huge, right? And I think, like you said, the timing is super important with when you think about mechanics, right? So if you think about your day, you know, at the beginning of the day, you know, when you're going through, you know, some video or, you know, you thinking about some different mechanical things that you want to do. Then when you go into like your early work and you're like your pregame prep, okay, maybe there's some specific mechanics from your video that you looked at that you really want to address. Okay, I'm working on this certain feel or this mechanic. I got to get this right. You know, you're in a controlled environment. Maybe we're hitting off the tee. Maybe we're hitting some flips. Like I can think about a couple different things. Then we slowly progress into like, you know, a little bit harder. You know, maybe you're getting challenged by a machine. You know, you're getting ready to face a pitcher, you know, baseball or softball that you might see that night. And then we're, you know, kind of focusing in more on like approach, how we're going to beat that pitcher, you know, stuff like that. Maybe it's just like one like killer instinct thought, like, you know, attack mode or whatever, you know, that kind of phrase is that kind of gets you going. And you kind of start as you progress, like through more challenging environments and you get closer to game, you lose, you know, mechanical thoughts. It's okay to have those mechanical thoughts like at the beginning of the day, but as you get closer to the game, like we want to get more in compete mode. So then once we step in the batter's box, like of the game, it's just like, okay, it's compete. Like, let's go. Like, I'm ready to go, like fully confident. You've put in your preparation and you trust your preparation that you went about your day the right way. You know, you got your mechanics right. Your swing is what it is for that day. It's not going to get better in the middle of the game. Like, it's, you know, it is what it is at that point. You've already had, you know, all the, you know, X amount of hours a day and lead up in the week and, you know, everything prior to worry about your mechanics and getting it right and trusting it in the feels, all those different things. When we get in the box, like, we got to go. Like, we're not thinking about mechanical things because that's going to hinder us in our competition mode. So once you get into the batter's box, it's just like, all right, let's rock and roll. So I think kind of having an understanding of like your day and like in what environments you can have more mechanical thoughts. I definitely prefer the controlled environment for those mechanical type swing adjustments. And then, like I said, as you get closer to the game, it's more just like, let's go compete. You know, let's execute our approach and have a plan. Go.
Awesome. And so in regards to maybe even that first drill that you showed, what are maybe 5 different cues, if you have that many, that you might cue different players on to try to really, you know, activate their rear leg and really stay back? You know, just 5 options somebody could go try today, in kind of as a thought process.
Yeah, definitely. So you can think about turning your right butt, or, well, I'm a left-handed hitter, but turning your right cheek towards the pitcher, right? And so what that'll do is, as you're like kind of cocking your hips in that motion and showing your right cheek as a left-handed hitter or your left cheek as a right-handed hitter to the pitcher, is going to help you kind of field like that load into that back hip. You can think about like throwing long toss, like how you would do that. So as a I'm not a right-handed hitter, I'm a left-handed hitter. If I'm thinking about throwing long motion, like to throw a long, like, so you go down and back to throw that ball, and what are you doing? You know, you're loading into that back hip. So something simple like that. So those are the two that I use. Yeah, I think those two are pretty good. For some guys, you know, telling them to load into their back heel is kind of good, a good way to get into that back hip as well. Thinking about like getting into that rear glute, like with a little bit of, how do you say it, like hip rotation, I guess, internal rotation with your hip. And thinking about like getting into that back heel as you're going forward. That's definitely a good way to do it. And I can show it a little bit better than I'm explaining it right now. But when you get like at, right, letting into that back hip, in that back heel, right, and then you're making that move like with that cheek kind of going towards the pitcher to kind of feel that back hip activation. So that's really good. The long toss one would be like, okay, I'm getting ready to throw a long toss, right? I'm getting into that back hip. If I do it like going this way as a right-handed hitter, right-handed thrower, like I'm going to throw a long toss, I'm getting loaded up to that back. So, you know, throwing, hitting, pretty much exactly the same. We're trying to load that back hip as we're going to throw. So for some guys like me, it is a little bit more challenging because I am a right-handed thrower and a left-handed hitter. So that can be a little bit of a challenge. So as a hitting coach, you know, kind of keeping that in mind and understanding like, okay, well, I know this guy's not a left-handed dominant thrower. So maybe for me, being a left-handed hitter, like trying to get them to go long toss as a lefty to feel like that, you know, getting into that back hip, like that might be a little bit more challenging for that specific. So maybe you might need to have the cheek to the pitcher for a guy like that. So it's definitely you know, up to the hitting coach to kind of get creative. But yeah, really good question.
Awesome. I have one, and maybe there's not a great answer for it. When we kind of talk as coaches, amongst ourselves, you get some really good conversations going. There's definitely some, there's that mutual respect across the board. At least there should be, right? I know on social media it doesn't always look that way. But the guys that are in the trenches doing the work, there's pretty good mutual respect there. But that doesn't mean everybody always agrees. What is something that you and Jock maybe butt heads on? Obviously he's playing right now, so it's a totally different perspective. Is there anything there where there's something that even you see that you would do differently with that, or something that you guys maybe talked about behind the scenes that's a different ideology or perspective? My point here too is to kind of showcase that like many different things work.
Yeah, no, lots of guys think about a lot of different things, right? Jock's always been the type of hitter who tinkers with his swing a lot, and you'll see throughout his career different timingisms, different mindsets, different approaches, all kinds of different stuff, right? Like it could literally be from one AB to the next, or if you look at an entire season, it could be 30 different swings in one season. So, he's always a guy who, he's a perfectionist. He's very, very educated on hitting, super intelligent, has learned from all kinds of different hitting mentors. And he's always, the tinker guy, like always wants to do different things. I find a lot of value in, choosing something and being consistent within that. I definitely think that, at some point he's a kind of hitter who, he can hit 40 home runs, he can be that, 260 average hitter. But I think sometimes like when you're chasing that perfection, like you sometimes lose out on consistency, as opposed to, maybe sticking with one thing. And it's like, okay, look, like you're physically gifted enough, trust what you got. Let's prepare the right way. Let's pick something, let's stick with it. And you're gonna, be a little bit more consistent. So instead of having that, last season, I think he, had 6 ABs in a row where he had 6 home runs, but then also, you have your 0 for 20 stretch where you're punching out all the time. And like, granted, that's going to happen throughout a long season, but I think the less tinkering that's going on and the more trust and, just executing a good swing, right, and being consistent with that, yeah, it might not be your perfect swing with like the optimal outcome, but it's going to be a little bit more consistent. So I think that definitely is like it's something that you can debate, back I'm chasing perfection versus like consistency. And that comes down, it leads into another conversation of like, power versus, contact. Like, do you need to hit the ball 115 miles an hour, like at a small clip, or can you be more consistent hitting it at 105 miles an hour, and do it more often and have more production, maybe a little bit less home runs? But, so there's definitely some different arguments within that question. But I think, it comes down to figuring out who you are and what type of hitter you want to be. And then figuring out like what you are capable of doing and having a plan and sticking to it.
Something that I noticed, and, I'd love to get your perspective on it, is the tinker guys, especially because you're so close, with a situation like that. To me, the tinker guys, have success tinkering because they find it, right, for like that moment. And that gives them belief in that day. And so if they're like, man, I can't feel it, and they go to the cage and they change a bunch of stuff, the basics of their swing doesn't really change. They might change a style, they might change a timing mechanism, they might, aesthetically look different, but a lot of what's going on, beneath the surface is maintaining, and they're so good that they have that elite decision making. They have some of those other tools, and that when they tinker, it gives them belief in that move versus tinkering because you feel like you don't have it, and then walking in the game like you don't have it, and knowing like, okay, hey, this isn't it. And there's some days when you tinker and you think you have it and you go 0 for 4, and you have to change the next day because you went 0 for 4. And then you're like, okay, this is it. And you walk into that game with belief. And despite constantly chasing something, what you're really trying to chase is belief instead of like that perfect swing. versus the players who can stay consistent, who can kind of believe in themselves, you know, in what they do. You mentioned the word trust, like trusting your move anyways. And those like that, they kind of both situations play, and they kind of stem with confidence, right? Like our job as coaches to create confidence, and there's kind of two different ways to approach it.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you mentioned, you know, the tinker guy who is searching for, you know, I just want to feel good going into the game. Like that clicked for me today. There's my confidence that I need to go execute a game. That's huge, right? Like your swing is what it is when you get into the game. Like at that point, it's like, I just need to be confident. I need to be ready to rock and roll and like go compete. So if I'm the tinker guy and that's what makes me feel good, and I'm confident now because I think, you know, I'm thinking about my hands, you know, today, or I'm thinking about my back hip today, or whatever that tinker move is, if that provides confidence, like, yeah, let's go, man. And, you know, the results are what they're going to be. It's not like, I don't know, the baseball's tough enough as it is. So it's hard to, oh, okay, well, I feel good. Like, I went 4 for 4. Like, some days you're going to feel bad and go 4 for 4. Some days you're going to feel good and go 0 for 4. Like, that's just the nature of the game. It's a tough game. But anytime you can go into the game with confidence and, you know, whatever might bring you confidence, like maybe it's a tinkering for that day and that specific feel, then I'm all for it. Like, let's rock and roll. It's all about the player and getting them in a good mindset so they can go compete in the game, you know, for however long that might be.
No, yeah, for sure. That's a great, it's a great thing. And I think, you know, it probably like age probably factors in, right? Like if you're 11 years old and constantly just changing all that stuff, like it might not be like, you might not get the same results as a big leaguer with a certain thought or a certain cue or kind of a certain methodology, you know, within those, and especially if you're not playing every day. And I kind of relate, you know, especially youth sports where, and even especially now, you know, let's say you have a regular season, you play on Monday, you know, you got your travel game, you know, you go 0 for 4, you know, then you play a game on Wednesday and you go 0 for 2, but you got walked twice. You know, you play a game on Sunday and you go 0 for 3 with 3 hard hit balls, and then you're off for a week and you feel like you haven't gotten a hit in 2 weeks. And in reality, like you're only using a sample size of like 3 games. And I think that can happen at the college level sometimes too, where guys feel like they just haven't gotten hit in forever. And in reality, it's just a smaller sample size. Obviously, you know, in the big leagues and in the minor leagues, you know, you're playing 140 games or 162 games. How do you kind of help those guys day to day versus maybe in another point in your career as a player, did you kind of manage those ups and downs? And maybe even talk, you know, about even other players, you know, or things like that too.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good question. So last year in the Florida State League, it's one of the toughest leagues to hit in all of minor league baseball. Adding guys to like stick to the process, like focus on, you know, what you want them to accomplish is really, really challenging, because I can have a guy who can hit their best ball and that ball's getting caught at the wall, you know, and it's like, dang, like I smoke that ball like at any other ballpark, that's, you know, that's a home run, extra base. And like it's really getting caught and thrown back in. And my guys are, you know, they come back hanging their heads, bad body language, you know, everything. And then it starts that second guessing process. Like, oh, I didn't get that hit. Like, you know, like not everybody, but a lot of people kind of evaluate success based on like getting hit or not getting hits. And so what I did for those guys, I know, you know, access of information is a lot different, even throughout the professional level and, you know, college amateur as well, not have access to the youth levels or whatever the case may be. But we're able to use our metrics to provide like advanced stuff, and be able to, you know, have a better idea of expected numbers. And so like, you're like, all right, we know your metrics. So therefore, you know, you hit that ball and in a different ballpark, that would have been an extra base hit. And so let's just stick to chasing what we can control, right? And it all comes back to controlling what you can control and, you know, being able to get a good swing off and get a good pitch to hit. And if we're able to do those things, like, well, that's how we classify success then. We don't necessarily classify success as, oh, you have to get a base hit, right? It's not about just getting hits. Like getting hits is very important, don't get me wrong. But if we can change how we classify success by having a quality at bat, like getting in a good position, getting a good swing off, like, you know, making good solid contact, like having whatever good solid contact means for you. And doing those things, like you can't control if the guy catches it or they're playing you in a shift and you hit it right into it, or, you know, the wind's blowing in that day and the ball gets knocked down. Like there's so many other factors that go into it, but over time, if you're able to be consistent through, you know, through that, how you determine success, then over time, like the results will come. So I think trusting that process is really important. And for every level, coaches, players, change how you think about this, and, you know, evaluate it in terms of what you can control. Because at the end of the day, that's all we got, is controlling what we can control. You know, baseball's a tough game, and so is softball.
Awesome. I only have one more question. If you guys have questions, again, just unmute yourself and ask. You got to have a great resource here. Can you touch on some of the mental challenges in college and professional baseball? And I, you know, if you're the starting first baseman, you know, you coached in high A last year. If you're the starting first baseman in high A, and you know the draft's coming up, and you're seeing all these rumors about, you know, these big time prospects of, you know, or shortstop, or whatever position is, shortstop, catcher, whatever, and, you know, all of a sudden the draft comes and this guy gets, you know, all this different treatment and things like that, and he goes immediately to high A. You know, your job as a professional is to not only, like, you know, you're with that guy every single day, like, you know, you have to root for him, you have to do that, and that's something you should do. It should be kind of like innate, and that's part of probably how you got even to high to begin with, is being like a really good human, really good teammate. But can you talk maybe about some of the mental challenges and kind of how to navigate that and not necessarily worry, you know, about what your career is going through, to kind of manage, you know, lead, just to still be able to lead yourself, to be able to do the next thing. And that could be, you know, a junior where a freshman recruit comes in at the college level. It could be things like that, but you still have to manage to lead yourself in a positive way to do the best thing for you, while also being kind of a phenomenal teammate. I don't know if you have an anecdote or a story or something, because that's what's going to keep you around anyways too. You know, if you're a jerk in the clubhouse, you're not going to last very long.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's, you know, another example of kind of controlling what you can control. So I always bring a lot of decisions back to that, but, you know, you have no control over that situation, of, you know, what decisions happen and if that first baseman comes up to your club or not. The only thing that you can do is, you know, like you said, continue to go about your business, prepare the right way, trust your process, you know, go about your business and professional. And just because you're not a professional doesn't mean, you know, you can't do those things, right? Like, we're all in control of, you know, basically how we go about our business each day, our attitude, if we want to be a good teammate, how hard we're going to work, how smart we're going to work, you know, our routine, all those things, our approach before we step in the batter's box, what our plan is. So controlling those things, I think, is super important. And, you know, not getting caught up in so much of the other stuff, because it's easy to do that, right? Like, it's easy to get caught up in, like, oh, who's coach playing today and I'm not playing, and, you know, all these different things. But at the end of the day, like, you just want to be prepared for whatever situation may come your way. You know, whether it's starting and playing all 9 or getting that pinch hit AB off the bench. You just never know what it's going to be, but, you know, if you prepare the right way and, you know, you're mentally there and checked in, then whatever it is, you're going to have an opportunity to make the most of that opportunity. You're going to have the chance to make the most of your opportunity given. And you don't know when it's going to come. It might be in a week. It might be in 2 weeks. When I was in college one year, you know, at the beginning of the season, I was just a pinch hitter, and you never know when those ABs are going to come, but you just got to be ready and make the most of them. And, you know, I did happen to get a pinch hit AB and got a base hit. And after that, you know, the coach gave me a start, and, you know, I can't force him to play me or not play me, but what you can do is just be prepared for that situation. And once you get that start, then I got a couple more hits, and, you know, then he started me the next day, and sure enough, you know, I was in there playing all the time. But just being able to be prepared and for that situation. And I think, you know, being a good teammate, regardless of the opportunities that come your way or don't come your way, you know, it's all about being a good person and being somebody who can, you know, be a leader and be a good person in the clubhouse and all those different things. And it all comes back to controlling what you can control.
Great answer. Love it. Any other questions, players? Feel free to unmute yourself instead of typing in the chat. Going once. Going twice. How did you and Jock work together as kids?
Good question. We always competed together. We played on the same teams. Wiffle ball in the street, t-ball. You know, he was always playing up with me, and you know, the level I was at. He's 2 years younger. We played high school baseball together for 2 years. He was on the varsity as a freshman and sophomore, my junior and senior year. Senior year of high school, we played on the same summer team. His senior year of high school, we played in Hawaii together on a summer team. I was a sophomore in college, and then he decided to sign. After that, he signed in 2010. I finished out my college career and got drafted, and then we were together with the Dodgers when I signed in 2013. So pretty much our whole career and childhood growing up, it was always together, you know, competing, trying to get each other out, you know, trying to see who could hit the ball farther, all that kind of stuff. Clearly he hit it a little bit further than I did, which is why I'm coaching and he's playing. But, you know, it was always fun growing up together and competing in all different sports, but especially baseball.
And then I guess a question I missed too. Can you talk about, you know, maybe player was asking about dropping his back shoulder. Maybe talk about plane, shoulder plane, and kind of cues you use and maybe different drills to kind of control shoulder plane in general and kind of how you view it.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're the guy that kind of dumps a barrel behind him and that back shoulder, you might have to think about, everybody has to think about different things, but a good like cue could be swinging down and just trying to be like overemphasize being steep to the ball. And that might help you, you know, with losing that that barrel behind you. And like, you know, that early, you know, shoulder tilt. So, you know, everybody needs to think about different things. So if you are that guy, like I would suggest, you know, thinking about swinging down on the ball and just trying to be steep to it. And obviously that's not something that works for everybody. That's not something that you'd say to everybody, but for that given problem, like that's something that you can try to test out. So that would be my suggestion. You can try to hit, you know, the top of the ball to, you know, like some hard, like low hop, one hop line drives or ground balls through the infield, like really focus on like, you know, hard ground balls and like a lower trajectory, as opposed to like, you know, trying to hit home runs or deep fly balls. So just kind of changing your sights can be something as simple to help that. Low line drives. It's hard to hit a low line drive when you make that first steep move, when you make that first move of dumping the barrel and like, you know, flying uphill super fast. You're going to be really susceptible to like pitches up in the zone and fastballs with hop. So, you know, you could try out one of those two things. Like maybe it's a thought, maybe it's, you know, more of like an approach thing and just like setting your sights a little bit lower. If you're in the cage, it could be like, okay, I'm just going to try to hit it to, you know, like basically the middle of the L screen to the bottom instead of like the middle of the L screen to the top of the cage or whatever. Like, so just playing games with yourself to kind of try to get the outcome that you want. And then maybe that cleans up your results. But always going back to pairing it with video to see like, okay, did that feel actually change what I'm doing? Or did that approach change what I'm doing? And now maybe it did, or maybe it didn't. And then you go back to the drawing board. But it's always, you know, a trial and error type thing and trying to figure out what is best for each hitter. It's not a one size fits all model. So anyways, hopefully that helps.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times too, you know, from a timing perspective, you make moves to compensate for being late or being too early. And then we look at the video and we try to evaluate, you know, where we are mechanically. And if you're letting the ball kind of get too deep on you, or maybe you set the tee up too deep with, a different cue there, where you're at, like think about just maintaining that path, like even longer, like not necessarily having a long swing, but maybe hitting the ball more out in front, not letting it get so deep on you that you have to kind of do this, because our bodies are smart. They know that we want to put the bat in the ball. And that's just kind of another option. And I think that's what's been really great, that you've talked about, Tiger, is that there's all these different things and everybody's different. And, you gave us a bunch of different things to kind of feel the back hip, and test this stuff out, like be your own coach. That was kind of our first, that was our first presentation, is kind of how to be your own coach, how to take information and apply what makes sense, from that aspect. So, does anybody have anything else? Going once, going twice. Awesome. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know we went over too, so thanks for just being so gracious and spending time with us too. And I really appreciate it. I know you had to jump off that other call and get on. So thanks for your time. Thanks for the great information. Definitely want to stay in touch, and got more stuff to pick your brain on too. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. If anybody has any further questions, feel free to reach out. Happy to talk about anything and help out any way I can. So good luck to everybody. Stay safe out there. Continue to practice social distancing, and hopefully get some baseball work in at the same time.
Awesome. Good stuff, man. So what I'll do now is I'll just kind of roll through a kind of like quick devotional. We were supposed to have somebody with the Angels do a devotional today. He had to bail. He had something come up, one of those calls. So I'm just going to just kind of read, kind of just read something that I saw that I liked, and kind of go from there. So God didn't create us to hide who we really are. Every single one of us was created with a purpose. And when you say yes to him, when you're living in God's purpose and being your authentic self and being exactly what God created you to be, you can finally unlock your inner joy and contentment. And I think that kind of leads into what we were talking about, about leading yourself. And also I think it kind of talks about controlling what you can. We kind of have this set, skill set that we've been given. And, kind of what Tom talked about too, is that, we're not owners, we're borrowers, and just being our authentic self and doing what we can to optimize what we've been given is kind of where we're going to find the most success. So something that just kind of stuck out to me, I really like the word authentic just a lot. I think it's something that if you can, I used to get signed autographs and things like that, and you get the certificate of authenticity. It proved that like that was real. That was a real signature. That was a real game used football. That was a real whatever. And I think the more real that we can be with ourselves, and that kind of goes back to being self-aware. And it goes back to what the emotional intelligence even that Dr. Rob talked about, with understanding like who you are as a hitter. Are you a hitter that's really OCD and you need to really focus on just like taking a deep breath, finding a way to believe in yourself, finding a way to reset? Are you a hitter who's, maybe too far on the other side and you're just kind of like free flowing, and you do have a mechanical flaw that you really need to address to kind of knock the dominoes down and find that lowest hanging fruit? And then who do you ask for help? Is it somebody in your family? Is it one of your teammates that's hitting really well? Do you have a really great hitting coach at your school? Somebody's open to you? Do you go out and find information on your own, without putting yourself in kind of a panic mode, but just knowing like you are who you are, you can control what you can control. Some of us are gonna, move on, and you've got, even in that situation, his brother Jock's making millions in the big leagues, and he's at a different level. From that aspect, we are who we are. We can make an impact on how we make an impact. So that's kind of my mini devotional for today, and we'll kind of move on. So what we're gonna do today is, what I want to do, I want to have two kind of the larger breakout, and then we're going to do a smaller breakout with coaches only, if you guys are around for that. So really quick, if anybody has anything before we jump into that coaches stuff, if you're done for the day, feel free to bounce out. It's totally your prerogative. I know we've kind of gone over. If it's something where you want to hang out and talk just as coaches, because I know there's some compliance rules, then we'll do that. So any players have anything? Nothing. All right. So I don't know how many coaches we have on here. If you're a player, go ahead and jump off. We'll stop.